How do we gain control over our life? Let's try to go through it step by step. First of all, clarifying the problem in need of solution and then putting forth a possible solution. So first of all, what is the problem? The problem is, or one way to phrase the problem is that there's quite a discrepancy, meaning difference, between that which I do and that which I want to do. The person that I am and the person who I want to be. If I don't see that difference or discrepancy because of my pride, that's a problem. There certainly is that difference. So for example, I want to get up early in the morning and do something positive and productive, maybe work out, make breakfast before work, but I don't actually do that. I want to quit the job that I don't like and try to venture forth doing my own thing, but I don't do that. I want to have other healthy habits, to start a diet, this or that, to have good financial habits, but I don't do it. Conversely, I don't want to have, say, some tic, some kind of OCD, as it's called, bad habits, but I do have them, right? And I do those tics and do those negative things. And obviously, kind of what I do influences who I am, and I want to be this kind of person, but I'm this kind of person. So we see the problem. One way to phrase the problem would be that I need a way of taking what I want to want and turning it into that which I really want. Let's clarify that. We see that we may imagine that we're free to do anything whatsoever. I can do anything I want. Right? So somebody tells me, for example, why don't you go and sell me your $1,000, cell phone for $1? And I say, well, I could, but I just don't want to. But that's where we miss the point. If I don't want to, I can't. Right? There's a limited range of possibilities here concerning that which I can be persuaded of. So to illustrate that, I have a range of freedom. For example, I can probably touch my nose. I can probably blink my left eye, my right eye, if I have those eyes. I can speak a little bit louder, speak a little bit softer, and I can move around a little bit, this and that, move my head a little bit. But if somebody tells me when I don't want to, and there's no reason for me to do it, why don't you go walk around the block? Insofar as I can't elicit that desire, I can't do it. Right? Somebody tells me again, chuck your cell phone out the window where it'll smash. I can't do it unless I can find the desire, but presumably I can't. Past a certain point, I certainly can't. Somebody asks me for, a quarter of change in the shopping line. Depending on who I am, I might be able to give it to them, right? If I'm very, very greedy, perhaps I can't, or for other reasons. But somebody asks me, a stranger, for $1,000, just like that, setting aside special circumstances, I can't give it to them, right? You have to be able to persuade me of something in order for me to do it. I'm not going to buy this $10,000 vehicle for $100,000, no matter how much you ask. Right? You can beg and plead for all day. I'm not going to do it. But I might buy it for $10,001 or $11,000, $12,000, possibly. Right? Conversely, the dealer is not going to sell me his or her $10,000 vehicle for $5, no matter what. Right? But he or she might sell it to me for $9,500, $9,000, whatever the case might be. So there's that little range of persuadability within which I function. And the trick is, the problem is to find out how we can transform that which we are, that which we believe ourselves to desire, or when like the desire. For example, I want to get up very early in the morning and work out before work, to transform that into a real desire, to persuade myself to do it, to sell it to myself, so to say. How do I do it? We see that multiple methods, of course, are put forward. For example, motivation. Right? I'm going to watch this motivational video, and hopefully that gets me to, using our example, to get up in the morning. I'm going to try to kind of bribe myself and say, you know what, I'm going to go out for ice cream later if I do this difficult thing. All these kinds of things we do. But is there some kind of more consistent and reliable method for transforming what we want to want into that which we really truly want, it can be offered that method, it does exist, and it is predicated on something that we can call relationship with ourself. If I have a relationship of integrity and trust with myself, that would be that consistent, reliable means and method to get myself to do whatever it is that I need to do. Specifically, how does that work? Let's take another person. If a stranger comes up to me on the street and says, hey, you know what, tomorrow at noon, meet me here on this corner, and then you're going to go help me for 5 hours to move for free. Unless I myself am fairly kooky, no offense, I'm going to say, no, get the heck out of here. Why would I do that? I'm just going to, I have some kind of obligation to this random person that just came up to me and is asking for my time and effort. But if, let's say, a parent of mine, a friend of mine, a sibling of mine, who I really respect and trust, asks me to come tomorrow at noon and help them move, perhaps for free, even for 5 hours, then, depending on the strength of that relationship, that's exactly what I may well do. If it's strong enough, that is what I'll do, presuming I'm able to, and other extraneous factors being considered. So, the same would go by the way of one's own self. If I'm a stranger to myself and I have absolutely no relationship with myself, there is no way for me to get myself to do anything at all. I say, I'm going to be there for myself the next day and show up again, whether it's to the gym or whether it's for some kind of professional opportunity, some kind of personal opportunity, some kind of healthy habit. I say I'm going to do it. I intend to do it, but I don't. Right? And here the idea would be I don't have that relationship with myself. I don't really care that I let myself down. And consequently, that's just how it goes, just as with strangers, as per the aforementioned example. So, what we would need to do is to build a relationship of trust and integrity with our own self, and then use that relationship in order to transform what we want to want into real, active, living desires. Specifically, how do we do that? Especially if I have zero relationship with myself right now, let's assume. What I would do is to start out with very little promises that I make to myself, and then I would keep them strictly and solely because I made them to myself. So, for example, I can say that tomorrow at noon, for example, I'm going to snap my fingers 5 times. Right? Just something random, but all the same. And then when noon comes, I'm going to do that. Just because I said I would do it. Just because I want to have that relationship of trust with myself. And that's a small little step. Now we see that some of us might have trouble even with that. I have so much pride. I have so much kind of lack of any kind of contact with myself that I wouldn't do that. I'm just not on those terms with myself. Why would I snap my fingers? I'm not going to do that. Or I may encounter great resistance when I try to do that. I'm like, no, I don't want to be held down by what I said the other day and snap my fingers 5 times. No, I won't do it. And we see unbelievable resistance sometimes to doing the smallest good things for ourselves. Right? Just, take a multivitamin if that's healthy. Do a little bit of exercise. No, I just won't. So we may have to go even smaller. I promise myself that I'm going to blink 1 time in a minute and then try to do that. The tiniest thing that I can get myself to do. Having done that, the obvious next step is to eventually ratchet it up, ramp things up. I snap my fingers 5 times successfully. Okay. Now I promise myself the next day I'm going to do something slightly uncomfortable. I'm going to not eat dessert when I usually do. That might be too much, actually. Something smaller, whatever it might be. I might do a tiny little bit of uncomfortable exercise. I might resist checking my phone immediately upon waking. Something small. I do that, and then I build up that relationship with myself further via these small acts. And it could take me weeks, months, potentially, well, hopefully not years, but certainly it could take me months to get that solid, stable self-relationship, right? Where I tell myself I'm going to do this, and then I do it. Now, when I do that, when I accomplish that, that's when the fun can get started, because then I can make commitments to myself, and I can make promises to myself, and I'm going to keep them strictly and solely because I made them. Before I said, I promised myself I'm going to wake up tomorrow early, 2 hours before work, and do something. When the alarm rang, I wouldn't do it. Why? Because I don't have that relationship with myself. I don't mind letting myself down. It's like that stranger that approaches me on the street and says, come tomorrow at noon and help me move for free. No, absolutely not. Same thing with myself. But now that I've built up that relationship with myself, it's enough to have promised to myself that I'm going to get up. And just because of that, I get up. It's not because, I'm motivated or because I'm about that life or about the grind or the hard work. Fine, that can be as it is. But it's primarily, if not really exclusively, because I promised myself and I value that relationship of trust and respect that I have with myself. If I let myself down, then I'm letting myself down. And I don't want to do that, assuming I've slowly built up that relationship. So further from here, again, let's say it takes 6 months to get to that point. I have that relationship of trust with myself. I can promise myself I'm going to do something, and I'm going to do it strictly and solely because I promised it to myself. Now here, I can again implement various techniques. One is I can, if it works, then I can simply, make a schedule, for example, make a list of tasks and say, I promise to myself that I will do this at this time or strive to so do. Also, I can say, I promise that I will not do this, right? I will not go here. I will not buy this. I will not act like this. Here we have to keep in mind we can't overstrain a relationship with ourselves, right? I'm just starting out, and I promise myself I'm going to run a marathon when I've never ran before in a week, right? When the day comes, I'm like, no, I don't care that much for that relationship of trust with myself. I'm not going to go that far, right? I promise myself something crazy or something very difficult. So start small, very slowly, patiently, gradually build up. So that's one approach, that positive approach. Simply, I say I'm going to do it, and then I look to do it. Another approach here could be called that of the stick, which would be to basically try to nullify some of our lower impulses and inclinations, such as laziness, by the way of punishment would be a strong word and can be misunderstood, but by the way of counter motives. So, for example, I can say that if tomorrow I don't wake up at this time and I don't press snooze, I'm going to do an exercise that I don't really much like doing, like push-ups. I'm going to do 10 push-ups, for example. And that can be enough to unify my will, my intent, where I wholeheartedly do whatever it is that I set myself to do. Right? If I can't, let's say, have some physical limitations, so I say, I'm going to donate some money to charity if I don't get up at this time. Or maybe the charity, I want to do that, so I say I'm going to donate money to the political organization that is the opposite of mine, right? I'm going to help my enemy if I don't wake up at the given time. Before, I didn't have that relationship of trust with myself. So there's no guarantee that I would do that. Now I do, so I'm going to do that, and I know I'm going to do that, and it should work. It should tremendously work. Right? And we see that we can use that method in so many diverse, creative ways. I have a tick that I don't like. Okay, push-ups each time that I do the tick. What do you know? It could be in a day, in a week, I've done push-ups. It's gone. Chances are. And if not, I can ratchet things up. Obviously, here we always have to keep in mind moderation and sanity. If we have already pre-existing mental health conditions that can lead us to obsessive compulsive type of behavior, or what's it called, where we inflict pain on ourselves intentionally, something like this, we have to set that aside. Assume that we have some baseline of function, psychological and mental function, right? So we don't take things to extremes. I'm going to self-flagellate myself, and we have to keep that in mind. But with that in mind, right, I can create such a system. I do negative things. There's a consequence. Physical exercise, again, monetary consequences, something like that. I do positive things because I promised myself I would do them. If I find myself resistant still to do things just because I promised, add in that counter motive, right? I'm going to do the push-ups, something like this. And by this method, which again could take another 6 months, another year, whatever it might be, eventually I should be able to get to a point where I can have an idea about something good that I should do. I should wake up at this time, go to sleep at this time, cut out this habit, acquire this other habit, invest some time each day to work towards this skill, whatever it might be. And then I simply write it down, or even I could do it in my head. And then I have the tools and the means to transform, that secondary desire, that idea into a real desire, into my real will, where I really, truly will do it. Always remembering that if I overextend, that might not work. Then I have to step back. I very gradually, slowly, and patiently build up to that point of having a relationship with myself of integrity, of trust, where I will do things just because I said that I will do them. And I will fulfill the punishments, the counter motives that I prescribed for myself simply because I prescribed them. And that way, I should absolutely, positively gain control over my life and be going onward and upward. Thank you for listening.